Hi and welcome. You are watching Evrensel WebTV, and today is the May Day. All around the world, workers are raising their voices even in these challenging circumstances. There will be thousands of words and messages about the importance of May Day during this entire day. And right now, we will be focusing on organizing workers for a better future. With us, we have Erkan Ersoy and Florentin Iancu. Erkan is Chief Organizing Director for Europe from Global Union Federation, and Florentin is President of IT Workers Union, SITT in Romania. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Erkan, let's start with you. Trade union power and membership have been declining last few decades across the globe, and we are in a pandemic period right now. What are the challenges in front of the working class?
I think the difficulties and the challenges that we will face after and during COVID-19 is quite immense. I don't think many of us realizing how difficult it will be. If I remember right, 1.6 billion workers will be facing major income cuts across the globe. And I expect a lot of attacks on workers' terms and conditions, workers' wages following COVID-19. So these times will be quite difficult. If we look at it, trade union membership and power, especially the last few decades, yes, it has been declining, and there are lots of debates and discussions why it has been declining. But I would say that there's a systematic attack on trade union movement since 1980s, especially with the neoliberal policies and economics and political approach, aggressive approach. These collective rights, that collective power that trade unions have is being under systematic attack. And systematically also, the capital has been pushing for individual rights, giving more rights to individual workers. And unfortunately, many of the trade unions fall into this trap and turn into service providers for those in those areas, and moved away from the collective and forgot about the core role of trade union movement or trade unions being the collective negotiators, collective power of the workers. So that is a one-way road. Once you go down that road, then you're moving away from your historic role and your main role, and then you start losing your power. That's what's been happening. So it's a combination of lots of things. And the mindset now is very, very problematic, because many of the workers thinks that they should only join the unions and involve with the unions if they have individual problems. And those are the times they knock the doors of trade unions and saying, hey, I have a problem, I would like to join, rather than actually thinking that it is our collective power which will make the difference, that we can bargain and negotiate collectively in other places. So that mindset is one of the biggest challenges, in my opinion, in front of us. I don't know what you think, Florentin, in that front. Perhaps you could allude a little bit.
I think I could follow up on what you were saying, and I think I totally agree. There are great challenges in front of us. My fear, if I can say like this, is that we're entering into this pandemic with a weakened trade union movement, and definitely workers are going to turn now their eyes again towards the trade unions, because they will definitely realize that during this pandemic, without a collective response, they won't be able to defend or to protect even what's left from their rights and from their benefits and from their, let's say, so to say, decent working conditions. And there's going to be great expectation, and there's going to be, a good a position into which trade unions will have to know how to deal, on one hand, with the fact that we are navigating into very, very complicated waters, but also to respond to the needs and to the expectation of the worker, and to find the keys to their mobilization, because this was going to be the key factor. we have to keep in mind that various countries into which the trade union movement has been weakened, not only from a mobilization perspective, but also from a legal perspective. We have to keep in mind that there are various countries into which, during this pandemic fights, social dialogue has been removed from the, let's say, political decision-making process. Hence, social partners, but especially trade unions, have been removed from these debates, because we have seen employers and employers associations continue to do their lobbies, continue to protect their profits, continue to protect their interests, regardless of the fact that within these social dialogue committees, national social dialogue committees, trade unions have been removed from the table. So there's going to be quite some challenges. I think we are going to see an increase in membership, and definitely we are going to see an increase in workers' mobilization. But in the same time, we have to do a proper analysis, a proper internal analysis, and start to look on how we can rebuild our structure, how we can use this moment to rebuild our structures in order to be capable enough to respond. This is the weakness that I see, that is going to be great expectation, and for the moment, we are still a little bit not in the best position to respond. And we have to use this opportunity to make workers understand that we can't just join, we can't just mobilize, we can't just collectivize only when we have issues. It has to be a lesson learned, and it has to be a lesson for the future.
Yeah. Erkan, I want to also ask you, you have been organizing workers across different sectors in different countries over a decade. What are the strategies, tactics, or methods you would advise people to use in organizing?
Following up Florentin's comment, I'm going to put emphasis on structures. What we realized across various countries, there are attempts, organizing attempts. I'm going to put organizing in inverted commas. Those attempts mainly focusing on the increments of membership, but not necessarily all of them focuses on structures. What we've seen from our practical experience is this: unless you organize workers around their issues with their kind of influential people on the ground, like natural leaders, we call them workers, natural leaders, and turn those leaders into committees, and later on those workplace committees into recognized structures, i.e. the recognized trade unions. Unless we have that kind of approach, I don't think any temporary increment in trade union membership will be sustainable. So our experience tells us this: workers really takes ownership if they are made to understand that it is their union. So they are not joining into something, but they are actually forming a collective. They are forming a power which will give them the chance to negotiate collectively at the negotiation table. I think the majority of the unions which are successful in organizing actually focuses on those two or three elements. They are looking at issues that affects workers every day, and then overall, related to pay, terms and conditions. They are looking at influential people within the workplaces and turning them into collective committees or workplace committees, and turning them into real meaningful trade union, and mobilizing workers and engaging them, making sure that members are participating in every single step during this collective bargaining processes. So they are mainly focusing on those. Majority of the unions who are successful that I've seen are actually unions who puts the main focus on the collective power and collective bargaining, and providing this as a kind of vision rather than a service or legal service, etc., but a vision, a kind of mentality or way of really shaping the workers' reality and workers' terms and conditions. And those memberships are not just sustaining itself, but also increasing day by day. because more and more workers within those workplaces sees the value of the collective power and trade union. Whereas the unions, which uses different models, just providing services, whether it is in the legal format or any other format, cheap insurance, cheap this or cheap that, whatever, they do bring people into union as individuals. And these individuals demand specific services, because the mentality you bring them in is, I pay my union fee, so I request a service following this union fee, rather than like a collective power. It's more like a customer relation, like commodity relation. So I pay, I need a service providing. So we are trying to shift that mentality back into the collective, bringing trade unions to core role, which is the collective power of the workers and collective bargaining at the negotiation table. That's the core business we do. That's our strength. That's where we really mean something for the workers. This is a difficult task because there is that perception already established across the entire world, and in Europe especially. I am seeing this. One of the biggest challenges that we're trying to overcome is to show workers that trade union is their collective power, not some external organizational structure. It's them. They need to form it. They need to take the ownership, because it's their workplace, their issues, and therefore it is their union. Yeah. I don't want to.
At this point, I want to ask Florentin also. You guys formed and built a very effective union of IT workers in Romania, and all of the companies you have been organizing are multinationals, and nearly all of the company level unions you formed came at the back of a strike or a threat of a strike. So it wasn't a smooth ride for you. What is your secret? What did you do? First, open your, yeah.
Well, I think if I look back over the years, I think the secret is in the ability and the capacity to take workers with you at every step of this process. We have been organized to bargain collectively. So the message was straightforward right from the beginning. This is our key, let's say, organizing engine. We are organizing in order to be able to efficiently bargain collectively, in order to be able to efficiently negotiate better terms and conditions. And for that, we realized, and we are making this, we are constantly putting this forward. We need a capable structure. We need a powerful union. We need the industrial muscle. You can't sit at a negotiation table with a multinational company with 10 people or with 20 people. You need to be influential. You need to be strong, and you need to be relevant. That's another major aspect. You need to build a structure capable enough to mobilize people, but also to gather information, to spread information, to keep people connected to this process. So organizing is about, for us, is about finding the right activists that would facilitate more or less the link between what is happening, let's say at the negotiation table or in the higher structure, with what is happening in ground level, and the other way around. What are the needs? What are the issues? What is exactly what moves workers from the ground levels? Because our agenda needs to be built by the workers. If you want workers to mobilize, if you want workers to back us up, we need to make sure that it's their issues identified within them that make our agenda and that are put forward, especially when it comes to negotiations issues. What we do is that, let's say, differentiates us from others is the fact that we are using from technological tools, but not only that, but we are using all sorts of, let's say, creative approaches in order to keep workers with us. What we want to create basically is the impression at the negotiation table that the company is not negotiating with Florentin or with 10 people, it's negotiating with 1,500 members. These are the people that they need to convince. These are the people that they negotiate with. This is one aspect. The other aspect essential for us is mobilization. How do we win mobilization? What are the key triggers for workers to mobilize actually? And what we have learned over the years is that we need to keep them informed constantly. We need to keep them engaged through this type of information and consultation, but also we need to involve them in the decision-making process. The ownership comes once you can decide, once you feel that it's your decision, that it's you who has the steering wheel in your hand, and you can direct this negotiation in the direction that matters most to you. Now, we do this by involving workers into all major decisions. It's not the people that are sitting at the negotiation table that are going to decide whether, let's say, a financial offer or some different terms and conditions from that are put forward by a company are good or bad, are, let's say, signable or not signable in a contract. It's the workers that will decide. And once you have this power, once you decide, if you say no, you obviously know that this means that you have to mobilize for this. It's not me who is saying, look, guys, we have to say no, and then we have to mobilize. It's them who are saying, Florentin, no, you are not allowed to sign this. We are going to mobilize behind you, and we are going to get a better offer, better terms and conditions. So this is what makes it differently. They have this ownership, and with this ownership, they feel strong. And when they feel strong, fear disappears. When they feel strong, mobilization is different. And we ended up sometimes in very strange situations. If a regular union would have problem in mobilizing people, we would have problems sometimes. Why haven't we mobilized people? Why haven't we used industrial muscle? Why have we been taking, decisions without this? Sometimes when you ballot a decision, you might end up into, let's say, 55 or 60% saying yes and 40% saying no. And you have a problem because, this is not satisfactory for the people. So basically the key behind what we have managed to achieve in this, with these companies, these giants in a country like Romania, which is, sometimes really insignificant on their operations map, is just because it was always about the workers. It was always about their needs. And it was always about their decision. Taking a company like Honeywell, for example, renowned for their, ferociously attacks against union, into strikes with IT specialists is something really unusual. But it comes on the back of all of this. Also, it has been really important that we as people, let's say, in front, as the leadership, so to say, to be able to offer vision, to be able to make sure that every single one of the workers understand that we are on top of things, that we are certain of what we do, what we decide, and they can feel safe, especially in this environment. So the three things that I was mentioning, mobilizations, organizing for collective bargaining made very clear from the beginning, taking the workers with you at every step of a negotiation process, and being capable of offering vision, leadership, and security during these difficult times as a strike are the key factors that will help you mobilize the workers. There is always a need inside the workers, to respond. They want to have the means to respond sometimes. There's a lot of frustration which is accumulated, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, when pressure on the shoulders of workers, and again, it's maybe everywhere, but in the southern countries like Romania, there's an increased pressure on cost, increased pressure on salary, increased pressure on overwork, so on and so forth. And this is like giving them the opportunity to respond not only for collective bargaining, but for all the things that have happened in the past. So we have to make sure that the workers feel safe. And once they feel safe and they feel strong, they will definitely react and respond. One last thing that we have noticed in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years is that there's been increased pressure on workers and on the terms of condition of the workers, even before the pandemic. In the last 3 years, there was no negotiation of our union that hasn't ended up in a collective conflict. None of them. Even in the companies where we would have well-developed social dialogue for quite some years now. This means that something up in the global management is happening. Someplace decisions are taken which, go down and say, put pressure there and there and there. Again, this is even before the pandemic. Now, when the pandemic has started, we have already seen that there's increase in that. There's increase in workers accepting, for example, salary cuts, accepting, working only 4 days out of 5 and being paid only for 4 days, so on and so forth. So there's going to be lots of challenges. And for me, again, the response is only going to be powerful structure that will enable mobilization in order to be able to respond.
Okay. There is also a general perception that everyone thinks that their sector or workers in their countries or yes, in their sectors are more difficult to organize than the others. So first of all, Erkan, is there an easy country or a sector in Europe or in the world to organize workers?
To be honest, I've been going around Europe and I'm training various trade unionists and I'm training natural trade union leaders, workplace leaders across Europe. And this is a common kind of position many of them come up with. They think mostly that their country or their sector is quite unique, it's extra difficult, I've been hearing this a lot. I've heard this also back in UK where I was working for UK Union when I was training people there as well. I can assure you there is not an easy country, there is not an easy sector in anywhere. So each country, each sector has got its own challenges. So when we hear success stories from different sectors, etc., like when I, for example, gives sometimes Florentin successes as an example, I hear that, yeah, but it's easier to organize IT workers. If I go to some other country, when I say actually IT workers, they say, oh, it's very difficult to organize IT workers. So it's all about people's perception experience. But I want to touch a single point, why it could be difficult or why it might be easy. The reasons Florentin just highlighted and I underline why he has been getting good successes in these multinationals is he's not fighting them as a single hero mentality. He's taking every single worker in that workplace with himself into that negotiation table. He's making sure that the structure he built is relevant to workers. Okay, that's the magic. When I look at other trade unions, okay, you're seeing these high-level negotiations with the bosses. You're seeing these high-level negotiations at the negotiating table, but not engaging the majority of the people, majority of the members. So the relevancy of that negotiation to the members, sometimes they're not even aware that trade union is negotiating on their behalf. Sometimes they are so not involved with the process, they don't even know that's going on. So you're going up the top level, your negotiation, doing a negotiating on behalf of workers without engaging them. Then later on, turning these people and saying, oh, they are not joining the union because they are young, they don't understand trade unionism. I always ask this question: when was the last time you asked what was their aspiration? What was the aspiration of a young IT worker in your workplace where you're doing sectoral or company level collective bargaining? Did you ask them what was their, what did they want to change in their workplace? And the answer usually is or we are doing through our shop stewards, we ask our shop stewards or we ask our delegates, etc. Not necessarily going and engaging every single worker through mechanism, through methods, through tactics into the collective bargaining processes. So if you really want a easy negotiation, if you really want a powerful negotiation, my answer will be this. Go and build your negotiation demand, your mandate from the ground upwards by engaging with every single worker, getting the mandate from them and putting that at the table and telling them this is their demand. These are all of their demands. These are the things that we are putting at the table, not as a trade union official that what I think is best for you, but what you want basically, and you have to stand behind it. So we need to build those mechanisms. These are our, in my opinion, our key roles as a trade unionists that we can play. not just go and try to be the Superman or Superwoman who will win for the workers. I think we need to change that mentality. And what I'm seeing from the examples that Florentin is doing in Romania in IT sector is that basically here we don't have Superman mentality. Here we have a mentality that that's your workplace, that's your issue, that's your union. Take the ownership and be at the negotiation table with me. If I am going into a company to negotiate with 2,000 people, then every single member in that company is sitting with me at that table. So that's the methods, that's the tactics that I think successful unions must do put in practice. So my answer is no, there's not an easy country, but it's up to us how we, make things more relevant to workers.
Okay, let's come back to Florentin. Now you guys aren't in the field due to the coronavirus crisis, I imagine. And what are the challenges and how do you overcome those challenges in this period?
Well, obviously, we are, 100% working from home in this period, starting from beginning of March. So, yes, we have been in lockdown in Romania ever since. Now, for us, we have been using digital tools to engage workers for quite a while now. It got more intense, if I can say, or it got 100% digital because we tried not to, regardless of us being IT specialists, and we could have used all sorts of IT tools sometimes, we tried to keep close to workers. We didn't try to escape, so to say, the groundwork, which is essential for what we do by using digital tools. Still, because we have a big organization and it's spread across the country, we have been used in using like these conference tools or collaborative tools or engaging workers through big, large conference meetings via digital tools, even well before the pandemic. So basically now it's gotten just exclusively on this, we keep trying to do what we've done so far. We're trying to let workers understand that nothing has really changed, because at first we don't want them to feel less powered or that we have lost our capacity to influence management, to influence company, just because we can't, get out on the streets in this period. So we are trying to keep as connected as possible. We've even intensified our actions. So we do much more meetings with workers, much more meetings with activists, with our structures in all of these companies, even with management. So we don't lose our visibility during these times. That's one of the things that we have as an objective, that workers will feel that we are relevant as a group, even in this period. And of course, there is always these discussions, what is going to happen, how are you going to respond, so on and so forth. So again, we're trying to keep everyone connected because we can't really assess right now what are going to be the company's next moves sometimes. So we need to make sure everyone is connected and prepared. One of the things that is visible so far is the fact that at least until the end of the year, companies will not bring back workers into offices. So even if the lockdowns are going to be removed, even if the situation is going to improve, the messages that we have so far is that people are still going to work from home until by the end of the year. That's going to be a challenge even for us. We have negotiations starting, we have very important things that will need to be done. So we need to be able to keep our momentum and keep our pressure the way we used to do it before, even with only, let's say, with digital tools or only through this type of mechanisms. Secondly, there are various responses, as I was saying earlier, also from companies in terms of fighting what they believe to be a very deep economical crisis that is going to come. So they've already started putting in place different measures. We need to be connected. We have set up like crisis committees in these companies. We need to be at the decision-making process at least through information and consultation, if not, power negotiation, but at least to be there, to be able to, again, maintain the communication and the contact with the workers. Everything we do basically has the one single purpose, and that is maintain our capacity to mobilize and even build it higher if possible. We know that we are going to need this, hence we need to make sure that this is not lost. Now in these times, it's very easy to lose it. People are individualized, they stay at homes. Many of them are young, many of them do not have even families. They might be isolated alone. So there are various issues, like various psychological processes that will happen in this period, and we need to make sure that they don't lose hope, they don't lose the connection with us, they understand that we need to be, I hate this word, but business as usual, in order for us to be able to respond if needed. Also, we're trying to get even more creative, if that is possible. During these large conference calls that we have with members, you can imagine we would have a conference with 300 or 400 people or members. We are discussing the topics at hand, the issues that matter most to us. We are also combining this with voting tools, so we are able to take decisions quickly on the spot there. So clarifying the issue, putting forward some hypotheses, and then taking the decision together, which also is a great tool for engagement and a great tool to in real time. That has been proven very useful for us, and it's something that we started to do just now during the pandemic. And I'm guessing we're going to use it from here on, because it has proven to be very effective. Strictly for our sector, I think these are the two main challenges. It's going to be working from home, maybe permanently, and that's going to be a major issue for us. And secondly, countries like Romania, but not only, that have, let's say, developed the sector based on mainly or vast majority in outsourced projects, are very vulnerable during this time, because basically you do not have a core business that you own. You depend on the strategic decisions, not only of the company where you work with, but also of the clients of that particular company. So it's we feel that there's going to be some troubled times ahead of us from this perspective back in Romania.
You mentioned mobilizing workers, Florentin. At this point, I want to ask you, what do you think about Google strike, which was spontaneous and without a union? What is your opinion on that?
Look, I think it shows that regardless of where you work, there are issues. And I think this is a good example, especially for the people that say, no, this can't work in my workplace, or no, this is not relevant to my workplace, or look, I work in the best of places, there's nothing happening here, everything is fine. That's on one hand. Secondly, I think to respond to this question, we have to look of the effects. What has really happened? Has anything changed? Are these spontaneous movements not really coordinated without any, ground structures that can follow up on the issues, that could continue to put pressure on management? Are they producing any long-term effects? And unfortunately, I enjoyed what has happened in Google and how they managed to mobilize. But if I look a little bit on what has happened afterwards, I'm still not seeing a union in Google, and there are, some issues with the leaders that were involved in, but I'm also not seeing a clear message that the issues have been solved. So I think we need to understand that it has to be a bit coordinated. It has to have a strategy. It has to have a plan. It has to have a leverage strategy. It can't just, this was like a fireworks, very, nice for a moment, but then, it kind of all disappeared. And what is exactly happening now? This is one of the things that we're trying to explain even to our own structure, because a collective agreement is only valid for 2 years. You might have a win now, but 2 years go really, really fast. We cannot afford to think that everything is going to happen without easily in the next time. So I have a fairly, let's say, divided opinion on what is happening. I think that the spontaneous movements, regardless of where they are, at some point they should get coordinated and they should get structured if they want to produce long-term effects. Otherwise, it's going to remain only an image exercise.
What do you think at this point, Erkan?
Well, I totally agree with Florentin, but I want to open it a little bit more. If you look at historically, majority of the workplace trade unions, they are kind of spontaneous activities. You know, few leaders comes together within the workplace, and if they have a good vision of what trade union is, and they form a union and they negotiate at the company level, that is feasible. But when you go something larger, like whether it is sectoral or national level collective bargaining, you do need different level of consciousness. And that usually doesn't come through spontaneity. So if you look at economic consciousness in its most basic form, you know, like with immediately trying to reshape your immediate environment, immediate terms and conditions, immediate wages, yes, you might form a union spontaneously, but when it comes to sectoral issues, sectoral vision, sectoral consciousness, that requires, in my opinion, external kind of involvement, external vision. Without also this level of consciousness, sectoral level of consciousness, you can't actually introduce the political consciousness either, because first time ever within the sector, workers start seeing that it's not just about their workplace, it's not just about their department. They see this as a group of workers working within that sector. It becomes like a more class issue. It becomes more class consciousness at a sectoral level. I am not a big fan of spontaneous uprisings or spontaneous organizing, because I believe that if you have a clear vision, clear strategy, clear aims, what you want to achieve at the back of that specific mobilization, is I think shapes and then builds long-term structures, long-term and guarantees long-term wins rather than just single issue uprising. So that's what we are seeing, and we've seen this in various other political uprisings as well across Middle East and then even in Turkey. Spontaneity doesn't produce solid gains. It might knock down sandcastles, but like waves. But when the wave goes, nothing is left, just sand. So as you can imagine, I'm totally agreeing with Florentin that we need structural approach, we need vision, we need clear plan, we need clear strategy and clear tactics to reshape our reality, not just single issue approaches.
If I may just add one thing, how the union struggle turns into political consciousness. During our clashes, let's say, with companies, during our day-to-day issues that we find in the working relations, sometimes you end up in a situation where you feel yourself like in a restraint jacket. And that's the moment when we are trying to explain workers that we can't solve at micro level what is wrong at macro level. So basically, if we haven't developed a political consciousness, if we don't understand that this is not just about our workplace, but it's also about the people that we vote for, it's just about the ideology that we vote for, that it's also about the ideology that we vote for, and what are the approach of these people, of the politicians towards the working relations. We can't reshape the way we feel as workers. So we try to explain them, look, this is legislation that we can't overcome. I can't take away a company's right. It has been given to it. I can't take it away even through a negotiation. So we have to understand that if I take working time, which in Romania is a total mess, because in the law, this has been given free, arbitrary decision, unilateral decision of the companies. Look, unless we manage to put in those positions, in the lawmakers, people that understand this, so create a political conscience of our own, we won't be able to fight this, even with the best of mobilization at company level. So people, you know, day by day understand that it's also important to keep connected to what is happening at national level, to what is happening in terms of politically, and start moving a little bit from the right sometimes to the left, and try understanding that we need a coordinated political response, especially from this respect. We are navigating into very complicated waters when it comes to regulations sometimes, and this might block you. And people need, again, as I was saying, to realize, to understand that you can't just go and vote conservatories that you know they will wreck your legislation, and then come back and try to solve it at company level, even if you have a very, very strong union. So this is how things are moving, at least for us.
We also keep hearing that nothing will be the same. What do you think, waiting for the working class after COVID-19? Erkan, let's start with you.
As I said at the beginning of my my speech, the challenges waiting for us is, I don't think many of us realizing. We are almost sleepwalking into it. Even if you don't feel it immediately, I expect major economical crisis. Major economical crisis producing huge amount of unemployment, huge amount of pressure on wages, combined with automation, combined with digitalization, workers' rights, terms and conditions, wages will be under immense attack. And after COVID-19, I expect full-on attack. Capital doesn't have to compromise anymore, and hasn't been compromising last 40, 50 years. Been attacking relentlessly, as wild as it can. Now, after COVID-19, the conditions, the environment as trade unions will be operating will be totally different. And we are seeing the kind of, reality of that, little by little, in various different sectors with the changes that they are pushing. And we are also seeing responses of the governments. You know, governments providing a lot of money and putting it, like, it's almost like a poker table. Like each government saying, okay, I'm putting X billion, and the other one raising it up, I am putting X billion. It's almost like a poker game for them. But mainly money goes to the big business, big multinationals, big monopolies. They are backing their own national monopolies. I expect lots of borders being closed, lots of nationalistic approach towards the economy, lots of trade barriers going, and production maybe going back to the centers of capitalism, but not through the workers or with the workers, but through automation. Like big developed countries probably will use automated factories to produce and create huge amount of reserved, unemployed army of workers to put further pressure on wages. But these are the challenges that we will be facing, and we start to face immediately. But these are also creating huge reactions from the workers, from the working class. And it is totally up to us how we're going to reshape our reality, how we can reshape, how we can organize workers towards a specific vision under specific strategy. It's totally up to us. I believe as a trade union movement, as progressive people, as progressive forces of working class, we really need to have an ambitious kind of agenda and a strategy. This time, not settle with few social democratic social rights and few economic rights, but we should really push it, fundamental reshaping of entire relations that we have, entire economic approach that we have. That's that can only come if we have a strong, organized working class demanding these, pushing these. It's not going to come from some politician, from some high-level trade union leader. It can only come from really organized, focused class with the clear demands, knowing what it wants and how it's going to get. Without that, I'm afraid we will have more misery, more poverty, more hunger, more deaths. So it's up to us. I'm gonna leave it there.
So the same question, Florentin, what is your future predictions?
Well, I think they're no longer prediction. I think that, look, it hasn't, it's only like a month and a half since the pandemic has started, and we have already seen capital pushing all of the negative effects, all of the pressure on the back of workers with the help of governments, which is true. We've been pushed out from the Erkan's poker table, and all of these decisions that are being taken there, and unemployment is rising fast, especially in sectors which are unable to respond, ununionized sector. So far, for example, in Romania, more than 1.5 million people have been affected by this. There are about 300,000 people that have lost their jobs already. It's a month and a half. Look, these people are preaching us about how we should live our lives, how we should, build our finances, how we should be very careful what we do. They weren't able to last a month and a half. And you already begging for the state to bail out again. State is paying salaries in Romania for about 1.5 million people so far, which is preposterous. If this type of companies, the big companies, require this type of help, what is going to happen, like, if this pandemic is going to continue for 2 or 3 or 4 months? Look, I agree. I think the consequences can be disastrous, combining again with automation, utilization, a road that has already begun since even before the pandemic. But the issue here is what is going to be a coordinated political response. We have seen countries now taking into consideration like universal basic incomes, for example. So they're looking a little bit at the rest of the people, not only the elites, in terms of some sort of bailout. It's just like in the debate when the debate started with technology and automation. Who controls it, right? How is it directed towards? It's the same here. Who controls the decision-making process, the political decision-making process? Who controls the way public policies are being drafted? And this is a very important question. How we can influence that? Yes, mobilization is key. Structures are key, but we have seen in various countries even limitation of human rights, limitation of basic constitutional rights. It happened even in Romania, but not only in Romania. So are we going to be able to respond? That's one of the questions that we are now trying to think, right? For example, nowadays it is forbidden to strike in lots of countries because of social distancing, so on and so forth. How much of human rights are going to be sacrificed for this security of your health idea? So I think the question is very complex now. It's not only an economical crisis. It's not only as it was in 2008, 2009. Now it's also a question of life and death that can justify in front of lots of people very large abuses, human rights abuses, constitutional rights abuses. And I fear the clash is going to be much bigger than we can expect in various parts of the society. Lastly, again, it is very shameful that we are being told that we have been living the richest times in the world since the making of the world, and still it is again the poor people that are taking on their backs all of this pressure. What I'm seeing around me in a country like Romania is like people being unable to pay their utilities, people being unable to pay their bills, and all we think of how are we going to save capital? That's preposterous.
So before, after talking all of these, before finishing our discussion, what are your last sentences and your messages for May Day?
Well, we are going a very important and unusual historical time. The capital suffering major blows in many ways, economically, socially, politically, and ideologically. As we've been saying, we will see what in all of those fronts, how much we will gain, how much they will gain. It's totally depending on how organized both parties are, both classes are. If they're more organized, they will push it further and further on every front, on economical front, on social, on political and ideological front. If we are more organized and if we reshape our structures, we can push it back. So totally depending on which class is more organized. And by looking at the history of working class, especially in today, in May Day, I can say this, that we shaped the industrial laws, we shaped the human rights laws. Trade union movement shaped entire social, political, economical, and ideological reality of last several hundred years. Okay, we have that power. We can, working class movement, let's put that way, shape the reality. We have that power. We are much, much, much more powerful than we can ever imagine. All we need to do is really, really act. When we act with a clear strategy, clear vision, with clear demands, I think we can, again, push it back. We have that energy. We have that experience, historical experience. So I'm quite optimistic. I will certainly do everything within in my powers to push this reality, to push that vision with the people, with the workers, with the leaders that we are engaging across entire Europe. And as I said, I'm optimistic. I will just say, Happy May Day to every single worker who is standing on their feet, who is pushing back the oppression, pushing back the injustice, and any form of attack. So solidarity with all of those workers.
Thank you. Florentin, what is your last message?
I have a solidarity message. I think that we should look towards, the trade union movement. I think people should ask, what is my trade union? Or if they're not a trade union member, they should join a trade union. I think during these times, standing alone is the worst case scenario. I think we need to get rid of this mentality as soon as possible, and we need to act together. And I think I totally agree. We have been shaping social policies for hundreds of years, and now it's a moment in which history is going to be rewritten. If we are not there, if we are not strong enough, we're going to miss out on great opportunities, and also on our chance of survival maybe at some point. So yes, Happy May Day to everybody, all of the workers across the globe, and it was really a great pleasure having this discussion in May Day.
Thank you both. It was very pleasure to have you as guests. And we have discussed importance of organizing, and Erkan and Florentin explained how to overcome the challenges facing us. And goodbye from Evrensel WebTV.